At a factory, there was a young man full of enthusiasm working as an apprentice. His mentor was an experienced technician who constantly reminded him of the importance of hard work and perseverance. He taught him a crucial principle: speak less, do more, and continuously improve your skills. For 10 years, the young man diligently followed this advice. He learned every aspect of the factory's operations, from machine handling to equipment repair. Through his hard work and dedication, he gradually became a skilled technician, capable of solving most technical issues. However, after all those years, he realized that colleagues with less experience were being promoted, while he remained in the same position. He felt unfairly treated and confused, as he had followed his mentor's teachings to the letter. Disappointment and doubt about his chosen path began to grow within him. Unable to find answers, he decided to seek out his former mentor to share his concerns. This marked a turning point, leading to an important lesson about self-worth and how to gain recognition for one's contributions. The young man approached his mentor with frustration and disappointment. He confided that despite working hard for many years and mastering all possible skills, he had not been promoted. Meanwhile, less experienced colleagues were given better opportunities. The mentor listened for a while, then asked, "Are you sure you're truly indispensable at the factory?" The young man immediately nodded, "Yes. I understand all the processes and solve major issues every day. Without me, the factory would struggle significantly." The mentor paused thoughtfully before saying slowly, "If that's true, try this. Take a day off." The young man was surprised by this advice. He had never considered stepping away from work, even for a day. But the more he thought about it, the more he saw this as a way to test his true value. Finally, he decided to follow his mentor's suggestion.
When he returned after a day off, he was called into the manager's office. The manager looked tense and said that the factory had faced multiple issues the previous day. Problems that the young man usually handled had left the team struggling, as no one knew how to fix them. This made the leadership realize his importance, and they immediately promoted him to acknowledge the contributions they had previously overlooked.
At that moment, the young man understood that sometimes hard work alone isn't enough. People must also see how important you are. After taking his mentor's advice and taking a day off, the young man returned to the factory feeling both anxious and curious. As soon as he stepped in, he was called into the office. The manager, visibly worried and stressed, explained that the factory had faced major issues the previous day. Problems that he normally resolved quickly had caused chaos, as no one else knew how to handle them. Without him, productivity dropped and operations fell into disorder. That was when the leadership realized he was not just a diligent worker, but an irreplaceable part of the system. Recognizing his importance, the manager promoted him to a senior technician position and increased his salary to reward his contributions. At that moment, the young man learned an essential lesson. Hard work alone isn't enough sometimes. You need to make people recognize your value. If he kept working tirelessly without ensuring others noticed his impact, he might always be seen as a capable but not exceptional employee. Following this realization, he adopted a new strategy. Whenever he felt undervalued, he would take a day off. Each time, he returned to find that the company had struggled without him, leading to better recognition and rewards. He started believing this was his key to success, the way to ensure people appreciated him. But what he didn't realize was that he had only learned half of the lesson. His misuse of this tactic would eventually lead to a costly mistake. Once he discovered that every time he took a day, whenever he felt he wasn't treated fairly or wasn't given what he deserved, he would find an excuse to take a day off. Every time he returned, he saw that others had struggled in his absence, reinforcing his belief that he was indispensable. His salary kept increasing, and he was given greater responsibilities, convincing him that he had unlocked the secret to success. But what he failed to realize was that his repeated absences were eroding people's trust in him. At first, his absence caused panic, but over time, his colleagues adapted. They had no choice but to learn how to handle the issues he once monopolized. His co-workers became more skilled, and management began to see that relying so heavily on an unstable employee was a risk. Then one day, when he arrived at the factory as usual, he found that his access card no longer worked. Confused, he rushed to HR, only to receive shocking news. His contract had been terminated. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. How could this happen? He was the most important person in the factory. How could they fire him after he had proved that he was irreplaceable? At a loss, he returned to his mentor, searching for answers. He was angry and hurt, convinced that he had done everything correctly. But when he met his mentor, the response he received was not consolation, it was a lesson he had never considered before. The young man returned to his mentor, feeling disappointed and confused. As soon as he saw the old man, he immediately asked with a voice full of hurt, "Why did I lose my job? I did exactly as you taught me. I made them realize my value. Yet, in the end, they still fired me." The mentor shook his head, looking at him with an understanding gaze before slowly saying, "No, you only understood half of the lesson." The mentor picked up a light bulb and asked, "Have you noticed? No one pays attention to a light bulb when it is always on. Only when it goes out do people realize how important it is. But if a light bulb keeps flickering on and off, would anyone want to keep it?" The young man froze in place. The mentor continued, "You made people recognize your value, but you forgot something even more important: stability and reliability. If a person keeps being absent just to prove their importance, sooner or later, others will find a way to no longer need them. A factory cannot depend on someone who cannot be trusted to always be present when needed." At that moment, the young man realized his mistake. He had been so focused on making others see his importance that he forgot that success doesn't just come from proving value, it also comes from consistent dedication. The mentor smiled and advised him, "In life, don't let yourself be taken for granted, but don't become obsessed with proving your importance either. More important than anything is learning balance. When you maintain stability and long-term value, life will naturally reward you with what you deserve." The young man bowed his head, knowing that he had just learned a valuable lesson, one that had cost him his job.